Michael, we've just seen you deliver a superb talk, but at times it did seem a little gloomy. What's your justification for that?
I'm afraid I see quite a lot of reasons to be gloomy. My justification for speaking as I believe is that I think it is important that I should tell people what I think they need to know rather than what I think they would like to hear. And I don't think kind of heady optimism is always the right thing to do. I mean, it can lead people to make bad decisions. For example, I have the view that the rise that we've seen in the stock market is not really very encouraging. It is a result of the huge amounts of money that the government has pumped into the economy through quantitative easing. That money's got to go somewhere. When you create new money, it's bound to be inflationary. The inflation, I think, is confined to just 2 or 3 sectors of the economy. Government's found it easier to sell its bonds. Stock market's got a bit of a bubble. Corporate property market's got a bit of a bubble. But I say to people, don't be misled by this. The year ahead is clearly going to be tough. The public finances have got to be addressed at some time. Very difficult to cut public spending, although I think whatever government we have later in the year is going to restrain public sector pay, is going to take action on public sector pensions. That's not going to make people feel too good. But there's also going to be, I think, much bigger increase in taxation, because we're going to have to start putting this public finance problem right. So there's not going to be a lot of money sloshing around. People aren't going to be feeling terribly good, and therefore people need to plan on that basis. Now, there are people who do very well in recessions. They spy opportunities. Maybe there are going to be good opportunities to acquire businesses which are undervalued. So it's not to say that people can't do well in this situation, but I think if they go into the situation feeling over-optimistic, they're less likely to do well than if they take a pretty sober judgment of where we stand.
Here at the Bracknell Forest Chamber of Commerce, we talk a lot about innovation. Do you think that it's a good time for companies and businesses to be innovative, or do you think we should hold back and wait for a more favourable business environment?
No, I think innovation is always a good thing, and I see it as it were, almost the only answer. I mean, where is our growth going to come from, our British growth, if it is not through innovation? I mean, our financial services are obviously in a very delicate situation. We don't now manufacture very much in this country. I think we have problems in our education system. So innovation, doing things better and differently, more efficiently, trying out new things, these can be the keys to being successful in business. So I think this is an extremely important time for innovation. And one thing I would suggest to businesses, I've never been in business in a serious way, so who am I to advise? But to motivate employees and to encourage employees to come forward with ideas for the improvement of the business, I think there's no better time than this to involve them in that sort of exercise, because if you can do things cheaper, better, more efficiently, to greater customer satisfaction, innovation can help you through.
Do you think there's anything that the UK can do at this stage to maintain its competitive edge globally?
Well, I don't think we have a competitive edge, quite honestly. I mean, we were highly competitive in financial services and we were great innovators. But I think the jury is out on that one. I mean, clearly we've been through a big crisis. We do have some, remarkable areas in the economy. I think of production of drugs, for example, very important sector of the economy, which do very well. But essentially, I think we are struggling now to have a competitive edge. We have, by the way, quietly devalued the currency by a quarter in the last year and a half to try and maintain our competitive edge. We've used the flexibility that we have by not being in the euro to do that. So I dare say we'd be worse off if that hadn't happened. But for the future, I mean, the thing that is really striking to me is that we will not have a competitive edge if our education is inferior to other countries. And right now I'd be concerned about education at various levels. I think our achievements in numeracy, literacy, GCSEs are all quite poor. I don't think we've got enough people coming through with science A-levels. We've not got enough people going through into rigorous university education in science subjects. And meanwhile, we look around the globe, we see China and India and many other countries churning out graduates of the highest quality and of the highest possible motivation. And Britain really has to get serious about competing in that area.
And finally, Michael, going away from the business environment a little, it's a question for you personally. You've done a number of dinner with broadcasts. If you had your perfect dinner guests, who would they be?
someone I've met that comes to mind is Nelson Mandela. I met him when he was president of South Africa. He was at a lunch with the Queen that I attended, so this must be about 12 years ago. He's a man of extraordinary grace. He behaved wonderfully towards me. I mean, who am I? But, you know, he just has a natural grace. He has extraordinary magnanimity. You know, I can't get over the story of a man who's locked up for 27, 28 years and comes out and apparently holds no resentment, who simply assumes the task of leading his nation into a great new future. And at a time when, you know, most of our conversations, as they've been this morning, are about money, about economics, to emphasize these other qualities, you know, magnanimity, generosity, leadership, quality. These are things that he inspires. So I once had 5 minutes with Nelson Mandela. If you would now give me 2.5 hours over dinner, I'd be really pleased.
Is there anyone else?
I think my second choice, if she doesn't mind, might be Queen Elizabeth I. I made a television program about Queen Elizabeth I. I'm an enormous admirer of hers. I think much that has been successful about Britain is down to her, and in particular her perception that we had to separate religion from state. We had to be very careful to guard against fanaticism. She ruled at a time when Britain was potentially split between fanatical Protestantism and fanatical Catholicism, and she wanted to create a kind of middle way which wouldn't exacerbate those problems, which would enable people to live together. And when you think about it, you know, one of the great successes of Britain has been that we have not been driven off course by fanaticism. We've been able to separate our politics and our religion, ironically, by having an established religion. That is a paradox, but it's worked very well. And I think Elizabeth is an extraordinary leader. And she's an example of the extraordinary leadership that women can give the country. And I was lucky to benefit from a second example of it at the end of the 20th century.
Michael, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.